Welcome back. This is episode 7 of Gaming at the Round Table by Owl Knights Media with JoJo, Maverick, and Crystal.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. I'm not going to continue it. Come on. Anyways, so what are the topics we're talking about today?
Cheats.
Mods. You want to help me with that?
Mods and cheats. Cheats and mods.
Oh, not the cheats.
Well, it's
Not
more
the
of,
mods.
do you consider modding cheating along with other cheating topics?
Let's start with modding because there's a lot to do with cheating in the industry. So I think we covered this a little bit last time with like the old school Game Sharks, the modding in Stardew Valley where you save some time and energy. What about games that you play, Joe?
I'm trying to think. The one that sticks out to me the most as far as a mod, I would say is Skyrim. And it wasn't like a negative thing, and I think it's simply because it was overall like a role-playing game where it didn't have a game-breaking like change in it. Whereas with other games, when they mod it, it's not necessarily just a visual mod. Because I think that's one of their cooler mods is they made a mod, I don't know how long ago at this point, but it was for Minecraft. And it was a realism mod. And I thought it looked so cool. Like, I thought if the game company took that and used it, that would be a game I would buy.
Yeah, with Minecraft especially, there are some games that are almost designed to be modded. And right now, if you log into Minecraft on, I think, any of the platforms, computer, PlayStation, whatever, you buy what is effectively a mod, that makes it look like Star Wars or makes it look like Legoland or whatever. So I think that's a really good example of this is clearly not cheating. And the modding community is vibrant in Minecraft, I'd imagine, especially on PC, obviously. But they're still selling whole packs. And Crystal, I think you mentioned last time that, what's his name? The maker of Stardew.
Oh, yes, Concerned Ape. He actually, with the recent patch, I think is 1.6, he recently added it to where modders could more easily mod the game because, I mean, people were doing it like crazy beforehand. Even he himself actually did a gameplay with mods attached to it. So that was
I have an idea. Who amongst us has modded a game before?
Me.
Yo. All of us.
A lot.
I would wager that anyone that's spent, especially if you're on a computer, any kind of chunk of time with computer games, you've modded one at some point. So,
well, Stardew was my first.
I think an example for Mav and I's generation, it started with Blizzard, with StarCraft, excuse me, even the original Diablo. Forgot what the mod was called, but it was more of like you could bring up like an extra sheet and then change certain specs on your armor. I believe that was like the original
yeah,
thing.
That's coming back to me.
That's why I said I know he would get it. But it was StarCraft was another one where they allowed the community to make game types to the point where people were playing those more than like their actual game types that it came out with.
Yeah.
And it was a good experience. It wasn't necessarily a bad one. I think not the original Halo, it was probably Halo 2 or maybe Halo 3 had the sandbox where you could change the map type and things like that. And that created zombie mode. There's a couple other modes that came from that, which they to this day use.
Yeah. Yeah, we in fact, there are entire websites dedicated to the modding community. I think one that we've probably all heard of, I have it pulled up right now, is Nexus Mods.
Yep.
I'm on their homepage here, and there are games I expected to see, Skyrim, right? But there's almost every game on here I recognize, and most of them I didn't expect to be a highly modded experience. Like Baldur's Gate 3, yeah, obviously, Skyrim, but
Mm-hmm.
just I'm going to blast through a few. Fallout 4, Stardew Valley, that's obvious. Cyberpunk, Oblivion, The Witcher, Mountain Blade 2, Monster Hunter Worlds, Dragon Age Origins, Morrowind, basically all the PC games that you can get on Steam. And that's just like their plug banner. If I look at their games, oh man, the list is too long to even go through. It's just infinite, and they've got, you have to scroll and scroll and scroll. So clearly, the modding community is vibrant and alive. But you mentioned, Crystal, like, or one of you two mentioned that is cheating, is modding part of cheating, and I think that the answer is like 80%, 20%, right? Like most modding is either fun or to save you time, whatever. But there's definitely mods like the one Joe mentioned where back in the day you had Diablo and you could pull up a different sheet and you would change numbers on the sheet and it would change your character's attributes. That was basically cheating, right? You go from strength 70 to 7,000, like
Yeah.
for sure cheating. Or adding items to your inventory. And I think that's where the lines start to get really blurred, to where you start to transition from mod inconvenience to outright cheating, right? Because some games, it just takes too long to harvest resources. If you're not playing in multiplayer, who cares, right? The fact that it doesn't take you 70 hours to do something in 7 seconds, fine. It's your life, it's your time. When you start doing that in online play, I think that's where we get into zones where people are going to defer on like how they feel about it.
I think you
Personally,
just touched it because
yeah,
I think if you mod in multiplayer, that's cheating. And again,
Yeah.
the game type does determine the severity of the cheating. Because again, if it's like in Minecraft, what's that really going to hurt for anybody? But if you bring up
Yeah.
games that are like competitive, I think in the normal like public version of it, I don't know that it again. I think it kills it to an extent, but not as bad as again. They have games where it is highly competitive, and the fact that it can happen in those types of games, that or that type of game, not those like the general ranking, it should not ever happen.
I would even go. So I think now we're getting in the opinion territory, right? So for me, when I entered, Diablo is a good example because it's had so many iterations and so many people know about it. When I entered a non ranked server and I was leveling up a character, I enjoyed getting power leveled. What I didn't enjoy is when someone came into the game, they clearly had a hacked weapon, and they would just wipe out the entire dungeon or dungeons, plural. My character level would just blast through the roof, and then they dip out. Like, you're welcome, little guy. And it's like, cool. But the whole idea of the game is to grind and farm. And they just robbed me
Yeah.
of that experience, at least, the part that I wanted to do. And that's not like in a competitive ladder.
But
What about
that's
you, Crystal?
where
Oops,
the
sorry.
like Chris had mentioned it when we were talking off camera, was things like the Chronos Zen and things that up your skill level. And then there's modded controllers. Those have been around since controllers came out. Like I don't think there's ever
Mm-hmm.
been a gen of gaming that did not have some form of modded controller. And I think that's a big reason why PC purists get so pissed playing with controller players because they get certain tweaks that they feel are unfair advantages.
Uh,
Which, if you have a standard controller, let's be real here, you're not going to beat out a mouse and keyboard. You're just not. At least for Apex
or shooters, yeah.
specifically, which I feel is like, well, yeah, shooters. I feel like a lot of mouse and keyboard players are like, oh no, controller players, they're just so broken. They can shoot and hit us with aim assist. Their aim assist is so wild. And it's like, bro, just wait 2 seconds. Let me go into that loot box. You'll kill me because I can't move, but
Yeah.
you can. So I don't know that whole
Because I know
argument is
there's Chrono Zen, but
different
what other
subject.
type? Like, because there's another thing I'm trying to remember the name of it. But there's
There's this special add-on that they released for when you're at a tournament.
Strike Pack. I
It'll
think is another.
it'll just take over your screen.
Strike back, yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about a different. Because that guy got hacked, so it wasn't necessarily that he had something on his controller, but I think someone having something on their controller and the fact that gaming developers, like not just the developers, the people that run the system itself, like Xbox, PlayStation, Microsoft, Sony, all these different systems have to actually program their systems to block these things.
Which they've
PlayStation
been
got one
doing.
recently.
Yeah.
What's the name of this add-on thing?
Chrono Zen is probably the most known.
Chronos Zen.
And then there's Strike Pack, I think is the other one.
Chronos Zen. So a quick Google search, they're apparently between $50 and $100, give or take, from what I'm seeing on eBay. It's strange that I don't see it on like a regular website. Why is this?
That's because PlayStation and Xbox are starting to ban them. So what's the point of selling them if you can't
I think
use
GameStop
them?
sold them.
People are not, yeah, people are not buying them like they used to.
Crazy to me is that like when I was hell to this day, I wouldn't pay $100 to cheat in a video game. Just
no.
I wouldn't either the game is too broken and unbalanced without mods that I just shouldn't be playing it, or I'm gonna mod it for free. But the idea that you pay $100 and then it gets into the idea of like why, it's not going to be legal in any kind of tournament, so you're buying it, cheating. I guess it's the whole like when your teachers are like you're only robbing yourselves kind of thing. I'm probably going to offend some people, but in my opinion, if you're willing to pay $100 to cheat online, you should feel no pride in winning your matches, right? Like there's no skill.
Well, then you have people who will do live streams of them cheating, where you could see you could see through the walls, you could see where every player in the match is. They have aim assist. They have two guns at one time.
Why do you think they do it?
Like because people are paying them to watch them do that. They're making money from people making donations and stuff like that because it's, I guess, interesting to watch. So
I think the devil's advocate on that, and I'm sorry if I cut you off, it's just like right there, is that there's a group of people, and it's in every community of anything, that they just, that Batman quote from Alfred when he's talking to him about the ruby and falling in the river. And he's like, there's just some people that like to see the world burn, where they just find joy in pub stomping and just running through. And that's a problem even without those hacks, those added bonuses, whatever you want to call it, of players at a higher skill level finding joy and trying to sneak into these lower lobbies where they made their Smurf accounts and just stomp kids.
Yeah. Oh, that's actually on that note specifically, because we keep going back to basically Apex.
I don't play Apex, so I think it applies everywhere.
I mean, it's in Call of Duty too, and
but
Fortnite. It used to have something like it, but they've gotten pretty good about balancing that out.
Yeah, but I know for Apex specifically, I could go online right now and go buy an account that has the 4K badge, that has a 20 badge, or I could pay people to go in there and farm a 20 badge for me or farm a 4K badge for me. So, like, there's lots of things to cheat for in Apex to get what people want.
You just open the door, and I'm ready. I'm ready. I've been standing in the doorway. Right. Okay, so you just reminded me. I got to change that. White screen is too harsh on the eyes. MMOs. and buying and selling accounts has been a thing since MMOs have been a thing. I distinctly recall the very first MMO I ever played. I think they did this in StarCraft too, but like let's narrow the scope here. Final Fantasy 11, I think, is the big MMO that I played first and put serious time into. Gold, buy gold, $5 for 100 million gold, or power level your account for $10, send direct, or whatever. It's usually people in other countries and it's like barely English, but sometimes I've even met individuals on MMOs that were from the States and were just power leveling through accounts and then selling them, or somehow, I don't know how they did it, where they would generate gold in the game and then they'd sell the gold. And I ran into that, and I'm sure everyone who has ever played an MMO has run into that. It's obviously cheating. Mm-hmm. It's rampant, but people do it because otherwise you wouldn't see 100,000 people spamming left, right, and sideways. Because would you do anything knowing that you're never going to succeed, right? No, they know that people spend the money, and that is definitely cheating for sure.
That reminds me of I'm assuming this is kind of what you're talking about, the invisible characters you would see in Final Fantasy 14, and it was like 13 names on top
like
of
they're
each
under
other
the terrain and stuff.
Yeah.
Like terrain glitched.
Yeah. They're like mining or something stupid.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing too, because even in heavily PvE oriented games, I mean, cheating is cheating in that regard, because you're online and you're getting ahead of your competition in many ways. And then there's the whole shadiness of making money on a game that you're free. It wasn't free, but the people have already paid for, right? So if you paid your, I don't know, it's currently around $15 a month for a Final Fantasy sub, right?
Oh yeah, Final Fantasy.
It's predatory in some ways, and either way it's against terms of service and all that kind of stuff.
But yet you have microtransactions that do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, but buying someone's account, right? I can see a little bit of gray area here too. I've never bought someone else's account.
No, it's very actually problematic because you can get scammed so hard.
And I think that's why it's such an issue in PvE games that are online, because I think I mentioned a moment ago, it's more the predation that's the problem than, I don't really care that Joe Bob has 100 million gold and I don't. Yeah, he advances faster than I do, whatever. But I do care that, my niece, my nephew, or my sons, my daughters, these people that can't make wise decisions get baited into spending, even if it's cheap, $5. Sometimes it's expensive. I've seen accounts going for various games at $250, and I'm sure there are way more expensive ones. So you can imagine your son coming to you and being like, "Oh, I'm out $300." It's like, well, how are you out $300? This person tricked me. And it sounds like a made up story, but it happens all the time. You see it on the news every now and then. So I think it's the predation of the buying and selling that's the real issue with that type of cheating, more so than you're playing a PvE game. You can progress regardless of all these other people. What's the problem with buying and selling accounts? And it's kind of like, I don't want to get political here, but it's kind of similar to the sex industry in many areas where it's not legal, right? It's not really about, oh, do what you want, you're an adult. It's about the overwhelming percentage of people that are either in it because they've been abducted or whatever. Like, it's a huge issue, especially overseas. I'm sure it's an issue here. I just haven't researched it as much. And that's how I view the buying and selling of accounts in MMOs, is that the massive majority of them are just looking to scam people. And it's not a legitimate transaction. Someone gets hurt somewhere.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to play Robin Hood to that, and I don't mean the sex industry part of that. Just to be clear, I'm talking about gaming. So like when I'm saying like Robin Hood, it's the sense of that some of these games charge, and there's one computer game that's like a space game where you can buy a spaceship in this game, and I think the real world value of it is
Say
in
the
like,
game.
I don't remember the name of it. If I did, I'd actually
No.
say it. It's like
Oh.
upwards to $20,000 to $50,000 for
What?
a ship in a game.
You're talking about from the developers.
Yeah,
Like there's
like
this
there's
has to be
something that
something like-
actually cost, and I like it's a ridiculous amount of money. It could be upwards to like $200,000 in a game. And when I
There's
say
gotta
like
be
the
something.
Robin Hood of it, that you have some people that will sit there and mod and do certain things to give the small guy access to something that ordinarily they wouldn't have any chance at coming near it. Nor like, and when you
Yeah.
said that there's certain things that are predatory, like I really think like that's really, really pushing it. And again, without
You're-
getting into other
Mhm.
topics like crypto or something like that, where it's like, how do you put the value equal to what is physically there? And
yeah.
that's where this modding and all these other things come in. It's where is it healthy, where is it unhealthy, and then how's it fair both ways, if that makes sense. Like again, you're charging me a ridiculous amount of money for something that is essentially made up in my head and saying like, oh, but if you
Mm.
do this, that's stealing. Like again,
Mm-hmm.
made up. It's a game, it's a story. Like
I think you're talking
Yeah.
about Star Citizen. On
it sounds familiar.
yeah, I know that they have obscene. For example, here's an article from one of our competitors. It says Star Citizen introducing a $48,000 ship bundle.
That might be it.
It's like what?
$48,000.
That's like annual salary. That's more than many people's annual salary. Uh, and it's not even. I can't. I don't even want to talk about that. It's obviously
I mean,
outside
that
the
can
realm
like
of sane.
that can rabbit hole into so many different things. And again, this comes from modding. And it's where we're going gaming wise and future wise with virtual reality and things like that. Could you imagine? And again, this is because you brought that topic up. They can charge you for a virtual girlfriend.
That's a thing nowadays.
It is.
With AI, it is absolutely a thing.
I mean, I'm just saying, I could technically go to certain parts of the world and rent.
Yeah, but that's a real
girlfriend.
person.
But that's a
that
real
consents.
person. We're talking like in the virtual
you see
sense.
them, and that's also now in America, by the way.
Yeah.
That's not just.
I'd pay for it. Just saying.
Now we see where the
I
moral
swear.
compass of conversation is like.
When our parents go through our podcast,
Zhang
this will be
Li,
great.
Zhang Li as my virtual husband, I'll take it. You know, I'm just
All right,
saying.
that's our game idea. Where you're just gonna make waifus and husbandos. We're gonna be rich.
Listen. I told you romance was a part of my, what was it? The first podcast we had where we talked about our ideals. And I was like, romance, just kidding. And you guys were like, no. And I was like,
It's funny because the game I was reviewing kind of recently, Unicorn Overlord, I didn't know it had a romance aspect to it. I released the whole review and everything, and then I realized, oh, I can get married in this game.
See, it's becoming more popular because people really like that aspect of the games. Like, you don't have to do it, right? It's not an important role. But if you do, sometimes there's perks. Like in Stardew Valley, when I get married, I could get married to somebody who gives me a coffee maker, and then suddenly I have coffee every single day. So it's the small things. I mean, Baldur's Gate, you get married, you get some spicy scenes.
Yeah.
But
But
that's why I
Baldur's
mentioned
Gate is a
virtual
role-playing
reality.
game.
Baldur's
Well, I
Gate.
guess they're both role-playing games.
Yeah. Yeah, they're both role-playing
Alright.
games. I'm a farmer.
I'm a
In
farmer.
Stardew. Thank you.
So, what do you want to do when you grow up? I want to play video games where I farm.
Yeah, and I
But that's why
mind
if you look
things.
at certain media, and I think Ready Player One is a good example of it,
The
where
movie?
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
where they incorporated a lot of that aspect of gaming and what it could mean business wise. And it's kind of like, again, this all ties back to modding because it's where do you find the moral compass in all of this? And it's who's really to say, like, is that really fair? Is that wrong? Is this right? And again, this is no shot at anybody, but if you're Joe Schmo and you live in like Antarctica, right? And there's 50 people within 100 miles of you, and we're humans, we want companionship, we want interaction of some kind. Because I mean, there's even apps now that you can have conversations with an AI, and it kind of helps people out of a slump, or if they feel like they have no one to talk to, they can literally talk to an app, and the app will talk them through things
Yep.
like a
I talk
person.
to an AI as well every day. I do actually. Not in the way you're describing, but for tech stuff.
But yeah, like I think some of it's actually truly interesting, and I think it has implication, not implications, but what's the word I'm thinking of? Where you can use it on a day to day thing, and it's healthy, and it helps a good amount of
Mm.
people, and it's kind of like a crutch or a certain material that can allow certain people that are struggling get through it. Because a lot of the times when you try to have an interaction with another person, it kind of comes off as like ingenuine, or they don't understand. But if someone finds that type of connection to an AI or one of these things, again, where's the compass?
Yeah,
Mm.
I think the transition were or transition's not the good word. The good word. Woo, English is difficult today. All right. I can see a thread between these topics that we're weaving through, and that is the boundary seems to be based on who gets hurt and what's the potential for hurt, right? And what versus the
Yeah.
potential for your gain. And obviously, you only do things to gain something, whether it's in game gold, companionship, entertainment, whatever, right? So, all of those wants are human desires, whether they're in the video game or in life. But the real deciding factor seems to be, at least between us, who, if anyone, gets hurt and how badly, and is that a worthy trade off, right? So, like, if I want to buy a Rumble pack on my controller, it shakes my controller. Well, this is old school. Whew, right? But that used to be something that was you had to go buy and mod. It physically went on your controller. Who gets hurt? Probably me because it shakes my controller as I'm trying to do stuff, right? But that's the extent.
That's so crazy. There used to be an exterior thing you used to put on your
Mm-hmm.
controller
Oh
that would
yes.
It
shake
looked
it.
like a memory card, but it was probably like this big, and you would click it into the top, and it would shake
So
the controller.
That's
yeah, Crystal,
wild.
here you've seen an N64. Do you remember their funny
Mm-hmm.
looking controllers? So they had a
Yeah.
hole in the back. At the back top, there was a giant hole, and that's what the hole was for. You slam either a memory. No, I think it was only for Rumble packs that attached there.
Then they started putting it into
I
the
just
actual controller.
Yeah.
see, I'm used to the two different versions, right? I'm used to having a controller that just didn't have it, or the ones where it's built in. I had never known there was something to go on your controller just to make it vibrate. That
But they have
seems,
heptic suits now. They
especially
have
because
like a
I
lot
turn
of
it
stuff.
off
Yeah.
They have like a
now, but
vest that literally you'll feel everything. Hmm.
a
Yeah, like if you're
vest?
getting shot in a shooter game.
I want that. No,
You
no, I
don't want to
don't.
wear that when you're playing
That
Apex.
sounds awful. No, I'd just be vibrating all the time. I die too much.
So I got a question for
Oh
both of you.
my god.
When was the last time you were 100% sure you were in an online game and someone was cheating?
At least once a day.
Um, yeah, I was about to say, when was the last time I played?
Is that rampant, you guys think?
Yeah.
Or
Oh, it's more
Oh
than
yeah.
rampant. Like, well, rampant just kind of like gives the exact, like, it's all like, but it's at the point again, and I brought it up earlier, is in an unranked version of it, it kind of kills the fun of the game. But that's comparable to playing somebody at a higher skill level than you, and it just them wiping the whole lobby. Because there are people that are that good, and it's scary and it's
Yeah.
crazy because some of them are really young kids, and you'll see it. You'll play some games where, on average, it takes 20 minutes to 25 minutes to finish a round. When you see that there's a very high skilled team in that game, it cuts it down to literally 10, 15 minutes because these kids are just running through people and they're not even cheating. But then when you see people cheating, it's just it's a lot different than when you know you got beat by skill, and then when you know like something just didn't make sense. Like I was behind something, and then I get shot. I'm like,
Do you remember that guy, Maverick, that we were watching him and we knew he cheated. But then as soon as he realized we were watching him, he started missing all
this
of
is
his
the guy
shots
that got into a car
magically.
accident a couple days later. No, I'm
What?
joking. I'm joking.
No. No, no, no.
Yes, I
But
recall. I
anyways.
also recall the guy we got footage of. And I think this
Yeah.
is a good topic to try to finish the podcast on is what can you even do about it? So this, Crystal, you want to tell this story?
yeah, you can
Report
We
them.
report
did,
them.
but then what happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as this little guys, nothing happens. But if you're watching a streamer report somebody for cheating, like you could see a lot of times you'll see that person that
Get
they
banned.
report disappear because they get
Do you
banned.
think that that happens because someone important is watching the stream, or because they have so many other
Um,
people watching that they all like go on and ban the same person or report the same person?
I don't think it's that it's the
You
report thing
can't.
because
Only the
like
person playing or that got killed by that person
right.
can report them.
And then I personally think it's because like they have connections
The
with
developers, yeah.
the higher ups. Yeah, that's why Apex specifically. A lot of the changes in the game have to do what the pro players want. So they have connections. They just make the game how they want it.
That
Because
sounds like a
there's
big
reporting
topic.
for inappropriate conduct
Mhm.
or like people saying things that are just obscene or just again, there's weirdos in every parts of life, but those things are there to like protect. Because again, kids play these games, and then now that you have more than kids playing games, you have kids as young as 5, 6 years old, all the way up to adults in their 80s playing games. So you're gonna have people in there that just shouldn't be around certain people, and those are inputted in there to protect them. But
Yeah.
again, when it comes to cheating, it's filtering through thousands of reports per, I'd say it's per second.
I just remembered I was recently
Yes.
reported.
I was there for it. We were playing, not very
uh,
well, mind you. We just happened to beat somebody in Fortnite, right?
Fortnite,
Next
yeah.
thing she knows, ding.
I got a message from the person saying, "Enjoy your ban." And I was like, "What?" Like, don't get me wrong, I pooped on him. But on a real note, like I probably missed at least a quarter of my clip on him before I put him down. So it wasn't like I was cheating, and then he didn't even stick around to watch and see if I was cheating, because if he did, he would have known that I was missing those shots.
Could have just been someone with anger problems, or like Joe alluded to.
I mean, I got anger problems.
I really like something you mentioned that is actually quite profound. And once you think of it, it's like, yeah, obviously, but profound for those of our age. Gaming's age expected age group has just expanded and expanded and expanded.
Mhm.
You mentioned that there are 5-year-olds. I'd wager there's probably under 5-year-olds playing games if they're, coordinated enough now, online games with other people. And even when I was in college, we're talking decade ago, right? More than a decade ago. I remember playing an online game with a 60-year-old man, and he was by and far an outlier. Like, it was unheard of, basically. I would wager that it's completely normal now. In fact, I don't even have to Google it. I know for sure that there are streamers relatively famous, right?
2 of them that I
Gaming grandma.
know of.
Exactly, that are 60 or in the age bracket.
I know of Gaming Grandma, and
Yeah,
then there's this other
he's
guy
Dad's
who
age.
used to be in the
And he's a
military.
vet from the same.
Sniper.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's a really good
And
sniper.
he'll literally
yeah.
tell and explain
That's
how to
crazy.
properly use like the scope on it. And he's like, "This is how you use this marker. Then you have to account for this." And then you just watch him go peek, and then just a guy 500 feet away. Bloop. I'm like, yo, that's nuts.
I've seen a clip from him where he's explaining the trajectory that he's about to fire, and he fires and kills the guy, and then he has like a really hearty laugh, and all the people in the comments are like, yeah, he has the opposite of PTSD. People like that are skilled, I think, are always going to get wrongfully accused of cheating.
Yeah, that normally happens.
Well, I've already explained to Maverick that when we were playing Fortnite, that if we die,
that's how it works.
That's half
that's
the
just
people I
how
play
it
with,
works,
including myself. Depending on how I died is my argument.
Now, don't get me wrong. I know realistically not everybody's cheating, but you just have to claim that to feel better. And then you hit,
This
next
is where
match.
we're going to end the podcast today. Kick us out. Someone kick us out.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. This has been Gaming at the Round Table, episode 7 with Maverick, Jojo, and Crystal.
Take care.
Bye.
Let me go over here.
Keep smiling.